Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Saturday morning of What's Up in the Neighborhood, where we will be introducing some of the bloggers that happen to be part of my personal blog role. Now, I've known Jerry Papandrea for probably over a decade. His DerryX blog has been a very popular read in Albany, New York, and the Capital District. It's an extremely varied blog. One day he'll talk about, vintage pro wrestling. Apparently, he has this big thing for the old New World Order. Then he'll start talking about recapping old episodes of Jersey Shore. And now he has a YouTube channel where he talks about various foods around the Capital District and also provides some of his own recipes. Jerry, it is great to have you here today on this Saturday. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Chuck. Thanks for that awesome introduction.
I try. So, where does DerryX, for those people who might not have been following your blog as closely as I have all these years, where does DerryX come from?
All right, that's actually a fun origin story. It's actually like more nonsensical than anything, to be honest. I always loved riffs around my name. So like the first time I had a blog, which was like when blogging first started, Blogger, which then it got acquired by Google. My first blog was called Nerrysoft. So my name is Jerry, but I just love throwing in other letters. So I don't know where the Derry part came from, but just one day I bought a Nintendo DS and it asked you for like a gamer tag, and you had, I think, 6 or 7 characters. It could have been 8. And I threw in the Derry, and they let you put emojis. Like before they were emojis, it was like, a carrot, and like it looked like a sad face. But if you really looked at it, it looked like an X. So that's kind of where that started. That started in 2007. And then I had decided around 2008 when I got a Twitter account that the Twitter handle was going to be DerryX, and then it kind of all went from there.
Now, some of the things, as I've mentioned before, you've been very dedicated in pop culture. You've had a thing where you'll buy these Masters of the Universe WWE action figures and you'll unbox them. Apparently, that's a big thing on YouTube, is unboxing stuff. Is the fascination these days with pop culture, is that actually more driven by blogging and internet culture today than, let's say, it was maybe 10, 15 years ago?
That's a really good question. So I can tell you, for me, it's not at all. But that there is a very large culture out there that is driven by things like Instagram. That's kind of the big one where you see a lot of this stuff. Facebook, obviously, there's a big following for these kind of nostalgic brands, and I think it just goes to the effect where we now have a situation where even the movies being made are these pop culture icons. Like, I mean, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has literally taken over movies. So I think a lot of that has to do with, that's kind of become the zeitgeist here. And, we, but from my perspective with the figures, I was always big into action figures, and I've been collecting wrestling figures since the 90s. And I probably have ones from before that as well, from when I was a kid. But the Masters of the WWE Universe specifically, it's a line that, for me, it's two mashups. When I was a small child, I was buying Masters of the Universe, and as a wrestling figure collector, it's just kind of the perfect, mashing up of worlds for me.
Oh, of course, definitely. I totally get that. Um, I did mention before, you had a good run on the DerryX blog where you were actually sitting there and recapping, of all things, episodes of Jersey Shore. Now, for a guy from my blog where I was actually influenced by you doing Jersey Shore, and I went and found a show that I could recap, and Back then it was Amish Mafia. So how fun?
I remember that.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that.
Excuse
I'm waiting for that cross episode where Snooki meets Lebanon Levi.
me.
But how much fun was it to be a Jersey Shore recapper?
So that's another really good one. So that's one of those things where at the beginning, so the first time I watched an episode of Jersey Shore, I'm like, how does anybody watch this? And the reason being is, I don't know that if people know this about me. Obviously, I'm probably reaching a new audience here, being on your show. But that that archetype of a character is not too dissimilar from the characters that I grew up with. Where I come from, Brooklyn, and some family, I don't want to specifically say cousins, but, I do have some of those traits are things that I grew up with. So when I first saw Jersey Shore, I said, this is the worst thing I've ever seen, but I love it. And I've always loved reality television, since, Paris Hilton, The Simple Life. And what I had decided to do was, at the time when I had launched the blog, I was looking for things that would kind of cross over into pop culture, because I never wanted to drill down to be like a local blogger. That was one thing that it was kind of difficult, because a lot of the attention that I was getting was from the locals. And obviously I was very grateful for it, but I did want to have kind of a larger footprint. And the Jersey Shore I called it at the beginning, it was Jersey Shore Recrap. What it actually wasn't actually a recap. It was me actually live annotating notes about the show. And to a certain point, I would drop a new dining review every Tuesday, and that would get, let's say X number of views. It was different at different times, but the Jersey Shore recaps that I would post Friday morning, the day after the Jersey Shore, the morning after, I would be meticulous about, 6:30 a.m. that post had to be up. And those posts used to get 20 times the traffic on a bad day. We were seeing a very different, you obviously, you look at your analytics, and I was seeing that it was working, and it was one of those things that I had to keep going with it. And I watched it through the end, and I'm not going to say I haven't rewatched the Jersey Shore since then, because I have come to love it. But it was definitely a gangbuster feature for the blog.
It was definitely lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
Was there ever a moment where you heard from some of the original Jersey Shore cast members about your blog? I mean, did you get like a retweet from JWoww or some curse out from the situation or anything like that?
No, I really think at the time they were so engulfed in it that I don't think they were paying attention to a small timer like me.
Well, I wouldn't say small timer, because you've been extremely busy now with your YouTube channel. You've been doing a lot of recipes and a lot of home cooking, and going out and finding some of the best food in the area, or some of the worst food. I know that there's been some instances where it's been, it's almost feast or foul. And one of the things I've noticed on YouTube, and I'm guilty of actually participating in one, are the eating contests of things like Frankenfood, the land, sea, and air burger at McDonald's, or, the double animal style at the In-N-Out burger.
You were big on that Mick 1030. Remember that?
Oh God, yes. 1030. I made a few of those that, they were edible. I just couldn't see myself doing that all the time,
Sure.
But what are your thoughts on things like videos that purport to have secret menus at fast food places and creations of Frankenfood?
So that I suck that stuff up. Let me go into a little bit of a story here about how the dining reviews have evolved over the last year. So if somebody goes back through my YouTube channel, and you can find it with my name, Jerry Papandrea, I'm the only Jerry Papandrea on YouTube. The first dining review was actually right before COVID, and it was a restaurant called Amuse on Broadway. And I am actually having Chef Dominic on a live YouTube one of these evenings. It was very different. I was doing more of what they call vlogging, where it was kind of embedded into like kind of like a date night. We actually went to Amuse on Broadway in Saratoga, and on the way back down saw the Impractical Jokers movie. And it was literally like the last night that we spent out before the lockdown. I think that was the last Saturday in February, and then the post went up, I think, the week later. And the first posts were very not influenced by anything else on YouTube. It was literally just me going about my day. But I came across this other person in California who's making these videos where he goes to restaurants, and his experiences are never good. And part of me was thinking, this doesn't seem at all genuine, but I love it because it's just entertainment. But how could I take elements of that and incorporate it into the reviews that I'm doing, and try to gain the popularity? Because this kid is getting 20 million views on videos, and they're really no different than what mine have kind of evolved into, except I'm just being honest about what I'm experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I took kind of his title structure, because part of the game on YouTube is to get recognized, is to get people to click on the videos. So the thumbnails, the titles. So I'm inspired or stolen or whatever you want to call it, his title structure, and incorporated that, and it kind of evolved over the last year. So you could actually see that evolution if you look through the DerryX Dines videos. But as far as the Instagram stuff, those types of like foods that are, I call it stunt food, where it's very much, it's like a burger inside of a burger or something like that. Like I won't eat that all the time, but I love it. One of the places I actually did a food challenge back in 2011 at Wagon Train Barbecue nearby, and that was a very, very fun experience, but it's not something I would do often. But yeah, that's a good question.
For those of you that don't live in the Capital District, the Wagon Train restaurant is one of those places where it has a challenge where you have to eat this ginormous amount of food in a short period of time. And if you do, they put your name on the wall. And if you don't, they clown you on social media.
I'm on the wall there, but on the wall of shame.
No, I think the most I've ever done was myself and another blogger competed in I think it was 10 cheeseburgers. How fast can you eat 10 cheeseburgers? And he was taking his time on them, and I basically finished my 5 and then started eating his.
I remember that. Yeah, and I think the thing is that around the mid 2000s, there was a big shift in programming for shows like the Food Network, or channels like Food Network and Travel Channel. I don't know if you remember Adam Richman, The Man versus Food.
Oh yeah.
That was, I think, a big pop culture moment, because you moved away from, I don't want to use the word elegant to describe what was going on the Food Network, but it was more instructional and kind of informational, and into more of this kind of, like Chopped, where people have to cook with, whatever ingredients are in a basket. And Man versus Food, he's going to these places. I mean, I went to a restaurant in Puerto Rico that was featured on Man versus Food just because it was on Man versus Food. So I think that was a big shift. And I think social media has just like made that exponential.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll go on social media and I'll find the old cooking shows. Like I just recently blogged about the Galloping Gourmet.
I saw it.
And then you've got like Julia Child and some of the other ones where that they've got the food already in like the second oven, and they're going through the recipe quickly, and it's all these elegant foods that they're all connected together, that, oh yeah, every housewife had them in their cupboard. Yep, all the 15 rows of spices, and the bread holder with the Amish pattern on the front of it, stuff like that.
Yeah.
there wouldn't be any quinoa anywhere to be found.
Yep.
When some people have tried to monetize their blog, monetize their YouTube channel, and there's been varying successes and difficulties. I know that you've had some success with a clothing line. I think selling DerryX shirts, and you've also had some success with a very specific shirt that I believe was called, and I know you're smirking because you know I'm going to bring it up. I believe it's called This is the Worst Day of My Life.
I'm wearing it right now. I redesigned it for 2021.
So without really naming anybody in it, where did This is the Worst Day of My Life come from?
It's a story that when we were younger, it was one story, and then when we got older, we started telling the story, and the person who originally told it said, no, that's not the story. So then it just became kind of a pop culture thing for us, and it was kind of an inside joke that I brought more people into, and now we have it as part of the merch for the channel.
And sometimes you have these things where you're trying to put something on YouTube. You got to be careful with music. You have to be careful with images that could be copyrighted. And I've run into that myself on occasion where somebody will be like, yo man, you can't use that music on your blog, man. I'm like, okay, well, I tell you what, you show me your copyright information and we'll talk. And then they're like, no man, I don't gonna show you nothing, man. Yeah. Bye.
Right. Yeah, for doing it on YouTube, there's nowhere to hide for that. So a lot of people don't know how YouTube works. When you upload something to YouTube, the Google brain analyzes that video. It analyzes everything in the video. It analyzes what's happening in the video, what's in the video, and the music in the video. If you have more than a few seconds of copyright in songs, they will flag the video for copyright. If you're monetizing off of that, they'll actually give your channel strikes against the copyright, and they could actually take your channel down. So I don't fool around with that at all. In fact, even when I was doing like mall vlogs, I would like bump up the background music that I would add, and I'm using all royalty free music that I get directly from YouTube for that purpose.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally understand. I mean, this shag carpet behind me, I mean, I don't think there's any copyright on the shag carpet these days, but you never know. Some tech company might get a little itchy about it. Where do you think blogging is going in the future? I mean, we've had a once in a lifetime thing with the pandemic. We've had more people that have been home. They get their hands on some recording equipment. Maybe they get a nice video camera from Amazon. And now we've got an explosion in blogs and podcasts.
So I think now is like the iron is hot, and now is the time to strike. If you're asking if somebody should get into it, I think that for a while, at least my own personal behaviors, I started reading a lot less, probably around the 2014, 2015 timeframe, and I was looking into more visual media. So I was on more of the Instagram and YouTube, just because that level of engagement was there. And frankly, we were having a child at the time. I didn't have the time to sit down and read, 1,000, 2,000 word blog, but something I could listen to in the background, a video or a podcast. That type of media is a lot easier to digest. I think that over the last 5 years, though, I think people have started to. People are online more than ever. They have their phones in their hands constantly, and I think that even while they're doing something like watching a show, I think people are multitasking and reading blogs again. And I do think that I mean, at least in my social media feed, a lot of people that walked away from blogging for a while or stepped away are now getting back into it. But I think that as far as the evolution of it, I feel like most of it has gone to more interactive media and things like podcasts, YouTube. Clubhouse is the big thing now for Apple users. I'm not sure if you're aware of what's going on with that. Um, do you know about Clubhouse at all?
I'm kind of still working in the Windows PC hierarchy, so
So Clubhouse it's all audio, and it's like a room where you have multiple people presenting, and it's basically like a Zoom chat, but they have high level influencers going into these Clubhouse rooms. So like for the YouTube people, it's not uncommon to be in a room and all of a sudden have Mr. Beast, who's one of the biggest YouTubers on YouTube or biggest people on YouTube. Um, I have heard that there have been rumors about Elon Musk joining some of these Clubhouse rooms. He's even looking to launch his own platform. Twitter is actually moving into that direction. They're coming up with, I think it's called Twitter Spaces, where again, it's audio only. And, these are things that you could either be there as a listener, or you could actually participate as a speaker. Facebook's working on one. So I think, the audience shifts, and I think it goes, you got to know how to go with the audience, and try different stuff, see what works, and go from there.
yeah, I mean, we've evolved past MySpace and, CompuServe and Prodigy and Napster and God knows what else. So,
But if you think about it, since the 90s that we've had the internet at our disposal, there has been an evolution of that whole thing. We had, like AOL chat rooms and instant messenger, and then we built in the Amazons, and then we started moving to platforms like Facebook, where, you could basically spend your entire day and your entire wallet on Facebook. They've basically built that into everything, and same thing goes for everything else. Instagram, now there's, where the notifications used to be, now there's a store where you can buy stuff from local people and worldwide people. YouTube, there's shelves on some videos where you could buy merch directly from a video you're watching. So yeah, I mean, the internet has evolved. You got to know kind of how to go with it, and dedicate your time to the right things for your skills.
so if you want to follow Jerry Papandrea, you can go to DerryX.com. I believe that's still the main portion to go to. And you can look up Jerry Papandrea on the YouTube channel. I'm going to have links in the video for both of these items. Jerry, it is so wonderful for you to join us today. I'm really glad you were able to take part in this. And by all means, have a great day. Thank you again for joining me.
Thank you, Chuck. It was great being on.